Good afternoon, everyone. This is Julianne Grant from Razorleaf Corporation, and we welcome you today to our Tech Tuesday webinar series, where we review and share some information on the latest Aras releases. Today, we're going to be talking about releases 19 and 20, and I'm being joined here with my colleagues Rodney Coffey and Milana Bradovic, who are going to take us through the material. Thanks for joining, and just a couple of housekeeping notes. We are recording this, so we'll be sharing this recording in the next 24 to 48 hours with you. And if anyone has any questions, there is a questions panel in the GoToWebinar panel here. If you could just fill that out, and we'll keep track of those, and we'll be covering them at the end of the webinar. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Milan.
All right, thanks, Julianne. Thanks everyone for joining. I know it's been a while since we've done one of these, and we're really excited to get back on the road with these. So to start, let's go over a bit of our agenda here today. So for this Tech Tuesday, we're going to be going over a couple releases, so 19 and 20. These saw some pretty important updates to some applications, as well as a couple more lighter feature-based kind of things within Aras Innovator. Alongside this, we'll be covering the release of variant management, which is a whole new application within Aras Innovator. We'll get you some more info on that later on, and then we'll go over, as usual, a couple notable release notes, Q&A, and then wrap up with some upcoming events that we have planned. So to begin, let's start talking about Innovator 19. So a few key things here. I'd say one of the biggest things, or one of the most important things involved with Innovator itself, is improving the export and publishing functionality within Aras Innovator. At this point now, usually when you export to Excel, you would be greeted with some sort of warning, some sort of notification. Now, when you export to Excel, it'll immediately automatically open up Excel for you, view what you have exported, just to clean things up, make things a little easier to use. Another thing that we've been talking about for quite some time that we've been looking forward to, that Aras kept mentioning and now finally is done, is now incorporate the technical documentation framework within manufacturing process planning. So this allows us to have the full-fledged suite of tools that are available within TechDocs framework. All of those enhancements that have come in the last couple of releases are now incorporated within MPP, and kind of opens the door for more things in the future. Alongside this, we have some advanced enhancements to 3D visualization, which are pretty cool. So we have a little bit increased CAD file support, some usability enhancements, and a couple more cool features as well. So to get into it, we can take a look at MPP. Like I mentioned, the TechDoc framework is now fully integrated within MPP, allows for more live data, allows to be incorporated into our manufacturing process plans. So this is something that includes, I don't know if you remember from the TechDocs framework demonstrations that we've done in the past, but being able to attach actual item properties, have that live data, if an assembly were to change, things of that nature. So as of now, they've only incorporated item properties to be attached to, say, operations or steps. But in the future, this, like I mentioned, this opens the door for all of those TechDoc framework tools to be implemented into MPP. There's also the ease of use upgrades that were introduced within TechDocs. Those are now also going to be in MPP. Things like drag and drop images, resizing, all of those things that made it a bit more like a natural text editor. Those things will now be incorporated into MPP as well. Moving on to 3D visualization. So as I mentioned before, they have expanded their support for multiple CAD formats. So a lot of this is getting the most up-to-date versions of things like Inventor, Creo, and also additional things like NX support from V11 up. So that's pretty important. Alongside this is improving the context menus, just making things a lot easier to use. Being able to navigate through your models a little more effectively. Also introducing the perspective view versus the generic orthographic. And then finally, something that is really cool and I'm really excited to show you guys is mocking up virtual assemblies and saving these views. So for a little bit of context, in this case, in our screenshot here, we just have one specific assembly. We're now able to add multiple other CAD parts into this and take a look how they would all fit together. So that will I will demonstrate all of that later on, but for now, let's take a look at some of Innovator 20 enhancements. So in this case, not as heavy on the application upgrades, but some other things that are ease of use, a little more access control things within Innovator. So the first thing is the mandatory access control identity. So this identity can check users' memberships to any provided list of identities. So I could highlight a user, for example, and see which identities they're exactly assigned to, allow us to verify their permissions a little more effectively. Alongside that, we have our client certificate authentication. So this allows us to configure this to read certificates from Microsoft Certificate and use those certificates to log directly into Aras Innovator. So just another way to authorize users to get access into Innovator. And then finally, there was an upgrade to Office Connector. So we have now moved from Office Connector 14, which was introduced a couple of releases ago, and we're now at Office Connector 20. The main thing here is some ease of use upgrades as well as styling enhancements. So Office Connector 14 was a little out of date, kind of kept with the styling of 12 SP 18 and before. We're now bringing that up to speed with the new UI that Innovator 14 Plus has introduced. So another few other things with the Office Connector here. The open an office action will actually now automatically open the proper Office application. There's no need to manually open these files after they're downloaded. Another ease of use convenience factor that we've provided here is a progress bar. So in general, if you're using a git, compare, claim, any of these actions, you'll see a progress bar as the action is being completed. No longer leaving you in the dark if, say, something has locked up, froze, any of those issues. And then, like I mentioned before, a quick styling refresh. The screenshot is from 14.02 or Office Connector 20. Just making the search bar match with 14 as well as some of the buttons and functions. So moving into what is probably the star of the show today, is the introduction of Aras variant management. So those of you who had attended our user group in the past or seen maybe a demo of this, those are all highly based off of the community solution that Aras had developed and released onto GitHub, mainly just to test out functionality, get users introduced to it, and kind of dry run how variant management would look within Aras Innovator. So as the end of June, this was released for Aras Innovator 12. Sadly, it's not released for 14 plus yet. That will be coming in August. So what variant management, the main thing you're going to want to look for here is it allows us to work from that 150% BOM of all possible configurations and work that down to our 100% BOM. This allows for improved efficiency within our processes, allowing users to synchronize between multiple solutions. And it'll also reduce costs by validating all possible configurations and preventing invalid ones from being put out there. So with that, let's move on. So before we hop into our Aras Innovator environment, I just want to go through some new terminology that was provided with the introduction of variant management. So the main key or the start of a variant tree or the beginning of variant management is the breakdown item. The breakdown item is a modular representation of the product. So this could be a parent item, this could be a universal item that is a child of that parent item, or it could be an item which is a possible variation within the overall configuration. Underneath these breakdown items are variable components. These variable components will contain assets that will be that will be serving a specific purpose, along with usage conditions like there are specific rules that are attached to each of these variable components that we'll take a look at in a bit. And then within variable components, we have assets, which can be any type of data, parts, documents, software, basically any item type within Aras Innovator. And then finally, we have our usage conditions, which will specify the rules, the allowed usage of any of these items. And then moving on, we have some of the lower level things that work a bit behind the scenes within variant management. First being our variability items. So these are what define our, these are what hold the rules configuration. So they have children features, children variability items that allow the administrator to build rules that will enable our valid combinations. So these rules, we'll get to in a bit, but these rules essentially are, they're based on pretty simple expressions that will correspond to any options you've created for features pertaining to that specific variability item. And these rules, we'll see in a bit, are built using either a text editor or a table editor. So with that, let's take a look at some of the things that we've talked about in Innovator. So to begin, we kind of have a little blast from the past opening up in Innovator 12 SP18. And to begin, let's take a look at some of these variability items within variant management. To start, we'll take a look at a breakdown item. So our example today is largely based around a bicycle that has multiple configurations. So to begin, we could take a look at our breakdown structure. At the top, we have our top level bicycle assembly, and underneath we have individual components that make up the bicycle. So every bicycle is going to have a frame, wheels, trim this. We'll have a frame, tires, seats, handlebars, all of those natures, all the things of that nature. But not every bicycle is going to be the exact same. So in this case, we can specify specific tire widths, specific diameters of the tire. We could have different frame materials, different colors, things of that nature, as well as multiple different types of handlebars, all of those bike components. Underneath the breakdown structure, these will all be individual variable components, which I've kind of discussed already. The tire, seat, all of these things are all variable components. And all of this will be dictated by our variability item. So if we were to say, take a look at our usage condition editor, just for a quick preview before we step into any resolutions, we could see that each individual one of these variable components are listed and can have different usage conditions on the top level. So if I were to highlight all of these and open them in a table, all right, we'll come back to that in a bit. We could actually open up something else to portray this. We could take a look at our variable components instead to take a look at the usage condition editor. So in this case, let's take a look at our handlebar here. That's it. So essentially we select things on our y-axis, and all of our individual components will appear on our x-axis in our rules editor here. So if we take a look at our table here, there are certain components that are highlighted with check marks, which means that they are compatible with that specific configuration. So for example, if we have an extra large bike, we can have handlebar 2303, as well as if we have specific drop bars, the handlebars that are listed as drop bar will be eligible with that configuration. So to kind of portray how these rules work and how the configurator works, we can actually take a look at how these assemblies are resolved. So to begin, we can start by selecting which size of bicycle we'd like to configure. So in this case, we can select extra large, and then we can also select our bicycle type. Let's do a road bike. So as we move down into each of these individual variability items, we can actually start to see certain things be deemed ineligible, possible, or compatible. So in the case of an item with a check mark, that means we're good to go and we can select that and use it in our configuration. These items with arrows are conditional. So if we were to select one of these, it would modify something along our variant tree here. And to confirm what is going on, we can select the show rules option here, and it'll actually portray our expressions and give us a bit of context on why certain things aren't working. In this case, we can leave the drop bar here. We see that an 11 speed bike is the only thing that is compatible with our extra large bike. So we can select that as well. We can also move down into our handlebar. Once again, we have a few of these alternate options. So in this case, if we were to select 30.7, we wouldn't be able to have a road bike and it would not be able to be a drop bar. So just to speed things up, we can click through and build a eligible configuration here. And for now, we should be able to resolve and take a look at what we selected. So once you resolve your configuration, it provides a proper list of parts that you will need to construct this bike. What you'll also notice is for things that weren't selected. So for example, we didn't get to frame. Every possible frame option will be provided here. So we're not completely down to our 100% BOM yet. So as we continue through, we can select some options. Carbon fiber. Finally, work on our frame. All right, and now that we have all of our options selected, we can start taking a look at our 100% BOM. As you can see, for each of these variability items, we only have one option selected underneath now. So in this case, we only have one frame selected, one tire, and only one seat post, for example. It appears that our configuration might be a bit off for our, nope, that's correct. So we have a singular disc hub for the front, the rear, and everything else. So in this case, if we'd want to go through and maybe modify some of our options, maybe something change in our design or something else along that line, or if we wanted to add an option, we could actually go through and modify our rules here. So for example, say we want to make a 30.7 inch handlebar be eligible. So let's deselect that. Let me actually go to a different variability item. Sorry about that. Anyways, if we wanted to modify our rules here, we can make use of either the table, we can make use of, or we can make use of our text editor. Let's show on table. So in this case, we're setting what each component's rules are individually. So the 30.7 inch aluminum riser bar will have the width of 30.7 inches. It will be listed as a riser bar as well. And then what we can also see here is where the specific handlebars are allowed. So in this case, if we wanted to add 9556 to the extra large bike, it's as simple as clicking in our rules table there and providing a check mark. We can also immediately cancel out configurations here. So in the case of handlebar 2303, if we don't want that to be available on an extra large bike, we can actually place an X there and it will modify our rules as so. So going back one more time. What we're actually able to do as well is if we want to export this bill of materials, we have our settled 100% BOM. We're able to make use of the export to Excel function and it will export as a spreadsheet that is available to be redistributed to, say, your manufacturing floor, anyone, or even to, for example, your sales staff. So after that, we can actually bounce back into our Innovator 19 and 20 environments. So let's take a look first at Innovator 19. So as I mentioned before, the key features that were touched on in Innovator 19 are 3D visualization and manufacturing process planning. So to begin, I want to take a look at what we received in the latest updates in 3D visualization. And to do this, I'll take a look at this extruder assembly. There we go. So first thing I wanted to touch on just really quick is the ability to take a look at our models and different projections. The default is orthographic. If we'd like, we can modify to perspective. Basically a preference there, depending on how users make use of your system. We're also able to modify our display styles here. So we can have a wireframe design, hidden lines, or a wireframe shaded, which is a standard. We're back to isometric. So another key thing added here is the ability to do a bit of digital mockup within the 3D viewer. So if I were to provide another part, let's do for example. In this case, I believe I added a component that was already in the assembly. So let's try something else. Keyboard. All right, perfect. So in this case, we're able to bring in other CAD models that are within our Aras Vault and move them into our 3D viewer here. So at this point, the 3D viewer doesn't allow for the transformation of any parts added in. That's going to be some functionality that's going to be coming in some future releases, which will allow some manipulation of these parts once they're involved in our 3D viewer. But if you're able to configure your models to be, if your models are constrained properly with the proper dimensions, say distance from the axis, the central axis, things of that nature, you'll be able to mock up assemblies within the 3D viewer from different sources. So that's a pretty important addition to our 3D viewer here. Another quick review of some of the other functionalities of 3D visualization. We're also able to make use of some other CAD tool specific features, such as like an exploded view, which is pre-animated, which is very useful. growing up or coming up in a CAD background, having to do animations of exploded views of CAD parts was always sort of a pain. So having this pre-configured within Aras is extremely useful, allows you to see inside of our assemblies here and get a better look at what's involved. While we're also in the exploded view, we're also able to say, get into some of these components that you might not be able to see from the exterior, like this thermocouple, for example. Select that and open up that specific CAD part. Alongside this, we're able to make use of turn our view ISO. We're also able to make use of cross sections. Once again, see inside of our CAD models, take a look at what's going on in the innards of our assemblies, and get some cross-sectional views of those. Another thing implemented, as you can see here, is the saved views, which allows us, for example, if I were to bring back in our heater, where'd it go? We're to bring back in a component, we're able to save this view and come back to it later and view it. So at this point, though, Aras does not allow for saved views to be modified or renamed, but that'll also be coming in a few releases as they're really pushing towards making 3D visualization a very powerful tool. With that, we can move into MPP. So MPP isn't the modifications to MPP aren't yet very apparent at this point, but there's a few things to note on here. One, the ability to dynamically resize images, drag and drop them where you need to, is something that's coming over from TechDoc framework. Something that we took a look at in some past Tech Tuesdays, only being used in TechDocs, now is coming over to MPP. And once again, sadly, those things are going to be coming in the near future. But for now, just the thought that we're going to be able to have more of a full-fledged text editor within MPP, as well as TechDocs, and kind of having all that functionality come together and be very similar. It just increases usability across the system and allows us to have less repetitive training, kind of have everything come together as one. And with that, let's take a look at Innovator 20. This will be a pretty quick one, as the one thing we're really focused on here is the Office connector enhancements. As a matter of fact, I can pull up a Word doc. So the thing to really focus on here is the upgrade to the interface. So the toolbar isn't very apparent, but once we get into our document search, we'll see that our search grid is very similar to the one that we have within Innovator 14 Plus. So if we were to retrieve one of these, sure. Well, looks like my configuration's a bit off, but let's move on. Our doc template, we have one. Yep, seems like something's a bit off in our configuration there. But the main highlight out of that is the upgrades to our styling and getting things up to speed with the rest of Aras Innovator. Case, let's hop back out of Innovator and into our deck. So a couple last things to touch on, which are the notable release notes provided by Aras Innovator. The few things that I picked out of here that really apply to the end user are a few more enhancements to tech docs. Officially, we got a spell check in our editor. Once again, trying to get this more towards a true text editor, keeping things within Aras Innovator. Alongside that, some updates to styling to kind of just continue the push towards consistency in our styling. There's certain things within Aras Innovator that may look a little more Innovator 11, Innovator 12, and now we're pushing things all together into one Innovator 14 plus user interface. Alongside that, we have some enhancements to usability, which will allow some of our favorited items to become a little more accessible, bringing those things into our title bar, search grid menu, table of contents menu, things of those nature, keeping them or allowing our favorites to be accessible from multiple places. And outside of that, I think we're ready to move into questions.
Great, thanks, Milan. Appreciate that overview on the releases 19 and 20. Okay, we got a few questions in. I'll start with, do you know anything about the next open release?
Yeah, so we haven't gotten anything about that yet. The last news we've really gotten is from their initial release of 14, where they said it would be coming within a year or so. That release of 14 was in October, so I'm hoping that they'll probably make release 14 open and available in the next coming months.
Okay, great. Regarding variant management, can my configured variant result in a new part bomb?
As of now, they don't have that configured yet within the new release. I believe that's something that they have on their roadmap, but for now, the only way to export your configured variant is through that Excel export.
Okay. Couple more questions here. Maybe, not sure this is a public question, but the question is, can too many images as MPP process plans still cause server performance problems?
Yeah, I would say that's an environment to environment thing. That's probably something that could be discussed offline more specifically though.
Okay. Why don't we take that one offline? And then do you know how the client certificates work in Innovator 20?
Not exactly yet. I haven't gotten a chance to poke around with them. I'll see if I can fish up some documentation and get back to them on that.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Let's see, one more question here. Is there any markup and save capabilities with the new 3D CAD capabilities?
Yeah, so in the case of the saved views, you'll be able to save your markups. You'll be able to save any modifications you made to that digital model by making use of the view saving.
Okay, great. A couple other questions here. Is variant management supported on all versions of Innovator?
Sadly, no. So with the release of 14, Aras made it pretty clear that they're going to mainly focus on releasing applications for 14 plus. I believe, well, variant management is only on the support matrix under 12 SP18 at the moment. I can't confirm if they're going to be trying to make that backwards compatible, but with their recent direction, I'd probably say it'll be 12 SP18, and then once it is released on, I think it should be coming in release 22 of Innovator. I think those will be the versions that'll be supported only.
Great. Make sure there's no other questions here from the audience. And then one last one. Does 3D visualization support multicad?
Yeah, so 3D visualization works by taking your native CAD files and converting them into a viewable format. So with that conversion, any supported CAD formats should be eligible to work together in the 3D viewer. It all goes through a specific conversion process that I had a fun time working with last week, trying to get everything working together. So yeah, any CAD type should be able to, as long as it's supported, should be able to work in the 3D viewer.
Okay, great. I think that about wraps up our questions. And Angela, we'll follow up with you on some of your other questions that you had about your particular environment. Good. She said she appreciates answering the questions. Happy with the current roadmap. So
Awesome.
great. All right, back over to you, Milan.
Yep. All right, we have just one final closing slide here. Not sure if Rodney's able to cover this. Looks like he might have lost connection. So just a few things here. Is that Rodney back? All right, so just a few things that we have coming up on our marketing roadmap here. So our next Tech Tuesday, we're planning on holding August 12th, which will be focused primarily on Innovator's new functionality around configurable dashboards. So once again, that'll be August 12th. And then look out for our next user group conference if you're a subscriber with us. That's going to be September 12th and 13th in Grand Rapids. We have our registration open. You can head to that link and should be able to register with no issues. Anything to add on that, Julian?
Nope, that's it. The hotel is holding a room block for us, so if you also have to, we'd ask that you register with us and secure your reservations with the hotel directly. And we have a special rate for our attendees. And if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to follow up with me or visit our landing page here, and we can try to answer any questions you may have.
Hey, Julia, can you hear me?
Oh, here you are, Rodney. Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties. Yeah, I was going to piggyback on that. We do have, for the user group, we're super excited about this opportunity to have everybody back together. We do have one volunteer customer that's going to be speaking at the conference. We're looking for one more customer-led presentation and are covering hotel stay for that participant. So I've reached out to a couple folks but haven't heard back. So if you're interested in that, definitely get back to me. And then we're also going to be looking for 4 or 5 customers to help us with a customer panel as well. So definitely reach out to Julian or I if you're interested in that.
Yeah, and to answer your question, someone posed a question about registering at the hotel. Yes, if internal Razorleaf, no, I'll take care of those. But for customers, please call in the Hilton, Canopy Hilton directly, and just ask for our room block code for Razorleaf. That'll be it. I believe we have to have rooms booked by mid-August, so do that as soon as you can if you plan on joining us. It's going to be a nice event.
Yeah, I'd say too, we did have on that front, we had one other customer reach out, and I think they received the meeting invite, but then they had 3 or 4 other people at their organization they wanted to attend. If you're in that case, just again connect with Julianne and I, and we can get a good head count for your organization and how many people are coming.
Great. What is the start time on Monday, the 12th? So I believe the agenda we're going to run, Rodney, correct me if I'm wrong, is people are going to arrive in the on Monday. We'll have a reception Monday night, and then Tuesday day will be the agenda will run from 8 to about 3 or 4 o'clock. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep. Yeah, we'll do the event, the reception at the rooftop restaurant there on Monday evening, and then give everybody a chance to get in. And we should have some fun things going on then. And then the conference will run until 3 to get everybody out of there and back to the office or back home for work on Wednesday.
Yeah, so you don't have to get there till Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
Sweet. Any other questions, feel free to reach out to Rodney or I. We'll be happy to help answer your questions. Okay, I think that wraps up our event for today. We appreciate everyone's time. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for your great questions and your interaction. That really makes it more interesting for everybody. And we will be publishing this out shortly. As soon as we get the recording up and loaded on the website, we'll be sending those links over to you. In the meantime, please register for our August 12th event and seriously consider our user group conference. We'd love to have you. Thanks, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.